Well, this is Isaac Brigmond again. I just wanted to talk to y'all. I had to do this in the dark because I come up with a topic or a subject that was just something right at the spare of the moment. I was watching a movie. Yes, I watch all kind of movies. And it made me think about my childhood. Made me think about the fact I'm a grown man and it doesn't hurt you grown men to say you know about your childhood. You're too busy talking about what you can or cannot do with your childhood because of the fact that you think that if you talk about your childhood. But I was thinking, okay, I don't know if you heard what I said to start with, but I was watching a movie and I got this idea. What's wrong with reliving your childhood? Your childhood is something that we need to go backwards in time and look at and say, well, these things that I did as a child, there are things that remind me of places and things and people that I hadn't thought of in a while. Or I'm around these people all the time, but I never thought of them in certain ways. And if I ever talk to y'all and I break down and cry, it is your cue to do the same if you must. Okay? All you burly macho men, stop right there. Stop right there before you go too far, men. You're not too big and bold as to break down and cry over sentimental things that God would allow you to break down and cry about. Some you've had lost loved ones who died, and I mean lost as in like they're not around no more. They're dead. They're gone to heaven. I don't see nothing wrong with crying about them being gone. It don't matter how long they've been gone. It don't matter if you had something happen in your past that really brought a tear to your eye. Cry about it. Even if it is something that happened in your childhood. If you lose a relative that you're close to, who's your friend and relative, cry about it if it hurts you. You know, nothing wrong with it. But we sit there and say that there's a grown man that will see another grown man get in touch with his childhood side and be doing it like he's supposed to. And he'll sit there and look at that guy like something's wrong. When knowing the one that's doing all that bad criticism, he should be willing to do the same himself. Wake up, guys. What are we doing? We're not doing nothing, but we're sitting here boo-hooing because we don't understand what we're doing. If you think about it, you need to grow up, wise up, smart up, and realize, folks, if we're doing something we're supposed to do, like we're sitting here reliving things in our mind. Well, like when I was young, my grandmother, who was my mother's mother, if you told her about something you wonder what it tastes like, if she could get a hold of it, she would cook it for you. And there it was. She would sometimes pull jokes, because you know us Southerners love crackling cornbread, and I love a good piece of crackling cornbread. And my grandmother knew that me and my granddad loved cracklings. So she made more than she had to make or cook, cook more than she had to when they got it. Because she knew we'd get some. She one time had cooked more, I think it was corn on the cob or something, and cooked more of it just because she knew I was going to get some of it. And then I'd have to tell her, I'm sorry, I took some of it. And she'd look at me like, I know, I did it that way on purpose. My mom's the same way. My mom knew something I liked, edible. She fixed it. My mom knew my dad had hurt my feelings because my dad at the time that he hurt my feelings, he was a single dad who used to be married to my mom a long time ago. And she knew he hurt my feelings. Well, you know what? She was the perfect mom and dad for me. She was all two of them in one. She was a mom and a dad. One woman had to play two parts. I mean, there was a time I had a stepdad that I really loved and cherished and wished he was still alive. But the two things that changed the story was he got a divorce from my mom and he died. I'm talking about my stepdad. Well, that divorce didn't really mess it up because me and him still hung out I mean, me and him were still tight after my mom and him had divorced. So it was like ex stepdad slash should have been my father slash my friend. And we got along. And I'm going to tell you folks, there's nothing wrong with crying. I'm doing it right now. If you made fun of me, you go talk to God about it, because I've had how many four-legged friends to die? Two-legged friends. And I know what it's like. I know a man that laid up in a nursing home that I got to meet through nursing home ministry. And he spent all his life on a gurney. I mean, literally, that's all the way he got around. And his favorite song was I'll Fly Away. And every time I've ever heard that song anymore after he died and went to heaven, I keep hearing him singing with us. And I liked his version a whole lot better of it, because it showed he cared. And he couldn't hardly raise his hand up, but he done the best he could to raise his hand to praise the Lord. And you know what? I miss him. His name was Terry Gorley. I know y'all may get on to me for saying names, but I gotta do it. And that man was a good man. He finally done like his favorite song. He finally flew away to heaven. He left prison bars called earth behind, and he went to the almighty heaven. I believe that in all my heart. You know what? I don't care if y'all make fun of me, if you ever see me shed a tear, but you know what? God knows why I shed my tears. God knows I have good reasons for it. And you know what? You can be the same way too. You want to be like these Schwarzenegger type guys, these Stallone type guys, these Van Damme and all that. Like, you so bad that you can't cry. You know what? There is such a thing as macho sensitivity, meaning you can still be the big shot, but cry every so often about something that God wants you to cry about. Don't sit there and think you too bad to cry. And relive your childhood every so often. It cleanses your soul to think about what made you happy when you was a kid, the things you remember. I remember a time when I had a hard time telling my mom. I still to this day have a hard time telling my mom some things. And some things I'm willing to just bust out and tell her because it's not so hard to say. And that's all my life been that way. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something else, folks. How about the one where you're a kid and you like some girl and you want to tell your mom about it? You just got to tell your mom about it, but you don't know how to do it. And finally, you have to realize you got to come out and say it. And I've had all kinds of people in this world, deal with me. Good, bad, and ugly. Ugly as in like their attitude wasn't so good. Bad because people may be beautiful or ugly, looks wise, and still some of them can try to corrupt you and put you down to the bad part of the world and of life. And it shouldn't be that way. But look, I just got through crying because this thing got sentimental to me, this subject. But I'm sick and tired. It don't matter if you're a skinny man, a fat man, short man, tall man, deformed man, because he was born that way. If you got something sentimental on your mind that God approves of, show it with your tears, even if it's just you showing it to yourself and to God. Show it. And let people know that are close to you what kind of person you can be. One that can cry when you're supposed to and be happy when you're supposed to. Because it ain't no need in sitting there being happy, mad, sad, all that in such a way that says, I'm not wanting you to know I'm this way, but I am. No, if you're going to cry, cry. If you're going to be happy, be happy. But if you're happy to the point of crying, be that way. If you're sad to the point of crying, be that way. Don't sit there and deny it. You're not doing nothing good for your health if you do these denials. Look at me. I remember that when I was younger, I don't know how old I was, I had me a Snoopy dog. And for some reason, I couldn't say Snoopy, so I said new dog. I don't know why. That's your childhood. You do things you don't know why, but it's still something to remember. And I know right now, there's a picture of me and my mom when I was little holding, I think it was a Goofy doll that they used to give out. You might have remembered it back in the old days when the Disney dolls were given out at some restaurant like McDonald's or Burger King one. And I had Goofy. Ha, I should have told you something. I am a little goofy. I'm talking about ha ha Goofy, not stupid Goofy. And my mom, and it was a me and her portrait. I still know, even though I know where that thing is, I still have a mental picture of that portrait. You know, my childhood wasn't so bad. You might think, well, you didn't have a dad live with you all your life when you was a kid. Yeah, I know that as long as things was good between my mom and dad, those times in my life is when my dad was with my mom. But when all went to went down south, as you want to say, then that was the time in my life when my mom and my dad wasn't together, when their relationship went down south. So half of my childhood he was with us and half of it he wasn't. I know that. But you know what? I still love that man no matter how stubborn and how mean he was. And I love my mom because my mom done for me things that my dad would not do. My mom would have been, still to this day, my mom being, well, I'm not going to say how old she is because she may not want to hear me say this. But let's just say she's up in age. And I'm 34. And she still would do it. As long as she's got good health, this woman will bend over backwards for me. Do things for me. I mean, even bite a bullet if it meant that it'd keep me from dying. And yet, we got to realize nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Just because you're grown don't mean they can't still want to do for you. Stand up for you. Do for you. And if she, I mean, you know what? I just want her to have the rest of her life for it to be good because I'd rather her have a better rest of her life than I had of mine. And I ain't saying my life was bad. I'm just saying there's things I've done to myself I wouldn't wish upon nobody. Yeah, self-abuse, and it was no more than basically you didn't do certain things or you did things you look back at later and say, why'd I do it? And people, don't. You gonna sit there and let someone die. Like I've told y'all before, back near the beginning of this year, my neighbor and friend who died, I loved him like a brother. And I cried about it. Yeah, I cried. I felt bad about it. You know why? Because we were tight as friends. If he'd actually stayed around long enough, I believe he'd get his life straight where he could get him a good girlfriend. And I would have been proud of it to know he had a good girlfriend. Now you say, what about yourself? What about your love life? Well, if my love life don't go right, at least if his had of, I'd have been happy about it. I'd have said, well, look at him. He's got it going good. And and he would have done the same to me. He probably didn't like the fact that he had a friend that was also my friend who I tried to go with and it didn't work out. Well, what do you expect anymore? And you'd think if she cared about me, she'd still be talking to me, but because I ain't said nothing in how long to her, she ain't said something to me in how long. But the point is, I cried about his death. And I did not want nothing out of him. I got what I needed out of him, love. The love you get from friends that should have been brothers, but they are brothers in Christ. And could talk about bad relationships with women, good ones. I mean, we had talks, we laughed, we had fun. He's gone to heaven, I know that. But the point I'm making is don't sit there and say, you won't cry about a loss of a loved one. You won't cry because you had flashbacks about people that you care about who's done dead. You won't cry and have fun reliving your childhood. So I'm supposed to, if I want to relive my childhood and say, there are things about my past that I really am glad I did, and some things I'm not glad I did, but at least I'll stand up and say it and say that my mom did for me and while my mom and stepdad were together, and even after, Both of them done for me what my own one single father would not do for me. And you know what? I'm glad of it. If I had to relive those days again, I would do it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even have to hesitate and say, should I or shouldn't I? I'm like, yes. Those days I had with my mom and stepdad, I would relive every one of those days again. But I would do a lot of things differently. I would ask God, since I know God now like I do, I would ask God if I could know Him then like I know God now. I would say, Lord, how do I put more of you in my stepdad's life? I mean, he was a good man, but even good men still need God because some of them are good, but they don't have enough of Him in their life, or they don't have Him at all. So quit just squalling and fussing and fighting with people like me about, oh, well, I can't be crying because it'll make me look sissy. You know what? Crying is about like when you eat something that is so bad that you got to throw up and you try to, you're over there dry heaving trying to keep from vomiting. And you just drank or ate something that's making you want to vomit. Just go ahead and vomit. Quit trying to make yourself look bad like, I don't vomit. I don't vomit. That's the same with crying. Y'all do the same thing. And you know what? Shut up. God done told you to shut up by that mess. You know what? We got to stand up. And there's nothing wrong with sitting there watching the best crucifixion movie you ever seen about Christ and crying and talking to Him and telling Him how bad you feel for what humanity has done to Jesus. We've messed Him up bad. We hadn't been good to Jesus. And yet we're going to sit there and act like we're not supposed to cry about nothing. Even I'll cry watching a good crucifixion movie. Come on, I've done it because it makes me think about the fact that we've done Him so wrong. Even if I don't physically cry, my heart cries. But I cry. And I'm going to tell you, there's nothing wrong with it. But you think in this world, we can't do that because we're supposed to be, rocks. You know what? We're not rocks. We can be Christian mush. Christian mush is when people realize that it's all right to be brave at things, but to also admit you have some fears and that you can go back to your childhood, even if it takes you having to get a group of your friends together and force y'all to sit down and say, what did you do in your childhood that you want to remember again? What did you do? Now think about it right now. I believe that group would be crying and saying, thank you, God, for making us have to pull that stuff out because you don't bottle up that mess. You don't sit there and say, oh, I'm so bad that I cannot relive my childhood. And remember the things that make me what I am today. The things that make you what you are today is, in my case, was God, Jesus, my grandmother, who was my mother's mother, my granddad, who was my mother's father, my mother, and the time I had my stepdad. Those and the time that I spent with my half brother who killed himself. Now, you think, what's all that got to do? And also the fact that there are two people right now, I believe is in heaven, that was the in-laws of my half brother who killed himself. And they spent time with me like I was their own grandson because I grew up. I was one of these guys that got to grow up with his own nieces and nephews from that half brother. And their grandparents on their mother's side treated me great. I miss them too. Now that's another set of people I miss right now. If they were alive today, and I hope they're hearing me from the great beyond, I'd hug y'all right now because I love y'all like family too. And if you're laughing at me right now, then go kiss Satan in the mouth. Go kiss Satan in the mouth. Go French kiss the devil. Because you're not holding hands with God. You're not talking to God. If you're going to make fun of someone like me for what I'm doing, excuse me. But there's nothing wrong with it. But if you see something wrong with it, you go right ahead. Make fun of me. But you know what? God will look at me more of a human being than he would you because you're too busy trying to choke back the tears. Oh, I'm so bad. Oh, I'm macho. It don't matter what color you are, what size you are. Learn to respect your fellow man and respect yourself and say, look, Lord, I've got these feelings in me. What do I do? Well, first thing he's going to do is say nothing wrong with having some of these feelings. But the best way to deal with them is if they make you want to cry, cry. Nothing wrong with crying over something good. And yeah, I know I've cried before about people that I couldn't get along with that I sure enough wish I was still dealing with now, men and women. Oh, I wish I was dealing with so and so. Yeah, yeah. And then you cry about it because they're not around you. So please, guys and girls, there's no such a thing as male and female macho-ness that says you can't cry about something. They say that feminine macho-ness and the masculine macho-ness, men and women being macho. Oh, well, you can't cry, you can't do all this stuff. What I just said in this video, yes, you can do this stuff. Your do's and don'ts I just said in this video, there's nothing wrong with it. But y'all won't listen. Y'all too busy saying what you think life is, what you think life should be. Life should be what God told you it should be. God said, cry if you gotta cry. Nothing wrong with it. But and there's nothing wrong with being non-racist. There's nothing wrong with being sentimental over the things that God asked you to be sentimental over. There's nothing wrong with reliving your childhood thinking about things that make you what you are today. If you married or if you got a girlfriend or if you have a friend, look them in the eyeballs and say, let's sit down. Let's have a chat, a real chat about what did you do in your childhood that you want to bring up in front of me. You want us to talk about. Let's get it out. You might end up crying and saying, I feel better now that I said that because I know that thing that happened. Some of those things you bring up will be, that without God and Jesus and your dear family members that stood up for you, you wouldn't be where you are today. I could have been already in jail or 6 feet under or mad and going off on someone if it wasn't for God and Jesus and my mom. I mean, I owe everything to those people. They were there for me when no one else was. I mean, and you think about it. What's wrong with saying that? Nothing. I mean, does it take you having to get something smacked upside your head? God will smack you in the head if you want him to. Yeah, he needs to smack you upside the head and say, son, I don't tell you how many times. Think about it. What's kept you alive? Things you done to yourself and things that others have done to you in the name of the Lord. Your mom done stuff to you. There are things you done to yourself as you get older that you realize, I should have done this a long time ago. It kept you alive. So people, will you stop throwing down that macho-ness that goes for men and women and bring up the fact that you really want to be macho? You let people know. Little boys and little girls, when you wake up one day and you see yourself as an adult, don't think your childhood's over with. It comes back in bits and pieces in your mind. You saying to folks, I remember when I was a kid, my mom done this to me, and I understand that it won't happen again because I'm grown and that was something that they done for you as a kid. It's all right bringing that up. I've had stories that if I bring them up to you, I'll either cry or laugh. I'm not ashamed to say when I was a kid, I had one of those plastic playhouses that the kids had. The one with the table that had that little arm that came out under the table to hold it up. The little yellow phone. And it looked like it had stained glass on it, but it was really a sticker. Well, I had a BB gun, shot the thing, and the BB ricocheted, hit me in the stomach. I looked at my mom. I said, did I just shoot myself? And she said, yeah. Now I look back at that. That's funny to me now. Back then it probably stung a little when it hit my stomach. But now it's kind of funny because that was something my child. It happened so bad. It stunned me 2 times. It stung you in the stomach, but it stunned you in the head like, did I just do that? But it's funny now. And the fact that when I was growing up, I had a friend that we tried to play a two-man baseball game once in a while. And I found out that if I throw the ball in the air, and while the ball is in the air, hit it with a baseball bat, it's like I'm the pitcher and the batter all in one. I could pitch the ball in the air and hit it and make it go way out there. People say play putt-putt golf. I'd be like hitting the ball so hard, like, whoa, that's putt-putt, not slinging the ball over there. I don't know what it is about golf and baseball. When I play those sports by myself, like one man, like solitary baseball, I consider solitary baseball. You throw the ball in the air, and while it's in the air, you try to hit the ball with a bat. I've done that. Made the ball go way out there. See, nothing wrong with thinking about these things. But I wonder, should there be such a thing as solitary sports? You never know. It may work. I don't know about football. Maybe we could have a game called We Have a Team. And we have two teams. Now this one, if y'all like it, if y'all like this idea, let's make something of it. But I think it could work. Have a football game where you have a team. Each team sits down. And they take two players. One from one team, one for another. One is going to be a guard. One's going to be a runner. You got the football. And you're trying to run to get around the guard so you could go for a touchdown. If you get around the guard, then he is allowed to come running after you got around him. If he catches you and knocks you down, then he has the point. But if you get the touchdown before he gets you, you get the point. Or we could do it like this. You could say, you take, and there are two men on the field. There's like, say we got it set up where there's two men on the field, and one is the guy with the football, the other's a guard. Say, if you got the football and you get around him, then he has a right to come after you before you get touchdown. If he gets you, knocks you down, gets the football, and starts running, you got to hurry up, get up, and chase after him to knock him down. And if you knock him down before he gets to touchdown, you get the point. So it's like saying he gets 1 point for knockdown, tackle. Okay, he gets a tackle point, and then maybe you get a tackle point if you knock him down. But see, the point is, say round one, you got Georgia versus Florida. Say, okay, Georgia's got the football. So it's one man got a football. Say Florida's the guard. Say he's going back and forth trying to keep you from going around getting a touchdown. Say you get around the guy, you're running towards touchdown, he's coming after you. Now say he gets you before you get to the touchdown and tackles you, then he gets a tackle point. Then he gets the ball, tries to go the other way to get touchdown. Then say if you were running after him and you tackle him down, then you get a tackle point for that round. Then you take the football from him, and then you run down the other side. And then if you get touchdown, then that round's over, and you got the touchdown. So it may be that round, there might be 2 tackle points. One for you and one for him, and then you got the touchdown. See? There you go. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not. And then you could do a baseball game where you have people who see how far they can hit, how far of a home run can you get. Okay, your home run was how many feet? His home run was this many feet. You're on purposely getting home runs, but you're trying to say, home run. Okay, his home run was how many feet? All right, next guy. Home run competition. Who gets the farthest home run? Or a two-man baseball game, just two men playing to see who wins. Two-man basketball game. Or you could say that, you could do it all kind of ways. But the thing is, I just threw it out there and thought to talk to y'all about it. Anyways, I better let y'all go, but do take what I said to heart because this is something serious to me. It means a lot to me to say this stuff because me and God want y'all to be able to be real people.